Okay, we're live.
Okay, sumere ko kay
Casey or Amber?
doesn't matter. Are we live? Are we on?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Core Tax and Bookkeeping Wednesday webinar. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Um, and I wanted to welcome back Miss Leslie Jackson, who is fresh off of maternity leave. Welcome back,
Yeah.
Leslie. We're so glad to have you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
Um, And so our normal webinar folks, Miss Rachel Mauricio and Casey are trying to get logged in. They'll be joining us maybe a little bit further into this webinar. But I want to go ahead and kick it off. So today we're going to shift gears a little bit. We've been talking a lot about tax and bookkeeping and prepping for, getting end of year stuff done and all the forms we need to file and getting taxes done. But also, as we go into a new year, right, we walk into it with goals and, things, we have hiring goals that we need to make. We need, oh, this is the year I'm going to hire the supervisor. This is the year I'm going to hire the manager. This is the year I'm going to hire that bookkeeper and have my own bookkeeper, right? So, oh, there's our new little buddy. Hi, buddy. This is the new Core Tax Bookkeeping mascot. Um, but we but yeah, so and when you think about hiring and bringing people into your business, there's always the issue of, you know, finding the person, right? That's the first piece of it. And then the training components of it start coming into play. And training can be a very costly thing. It is a very costly thing. From the costs and expenses of recruiting all the way to, getting them fully trained up, ready to go and deploy into normal operations, right? There's a lot of time and money that gets put into all of those processes and all the softwares and things that you utilize in your business. And so we're going to talk today a little bit about some training, best practices in general, right, that you could apply to any role within your company. And then we're also going to talk about training a bookkeeper, right? Because that's what we excel at, right, is bookkeeping and tax services. And so I know a lot of companies, um, I know that a lot of companies uh, outsource their bookkeeping to people like us, but there's some businesses that are too big for that, right? They're too big. They need to have somebody in-house that can answer the phones and send out invoices when work is completed and get the bills paid and enter all the bills, right? And so for some other businesses, it makes sense for them to have an in-house bookkeeper. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. How should you be training these people? What are the things that you want to look for right off the bat when you're hiring a bookkeeper? Right? What are some of the questions you want to ask and things that you want to make sure they know? And then what are some of the skill sets and things that you need to train them and show them when they start so that they can be successful in their roles? We have a little slideshow presentation that Miss Sam put together for us. I'm super
Yes.
excited. It's our first time we did the webinar with the slideshow. So Sam, whenever you're ready, if you want to deploy that, I would love to
Okay.
kick this off and get it started. And Leslie, I'm going to have you um, when we start talking about the bookkeeping training, right? Like I want to have you talk a little bit about your real life experiences as to what you've seen that works and what doesn't work. So that way you can give some experience, testimony of what it looks like when you're actually training people in a way where there's not so much structure and training people when we do have a lot of structure. Because I know last year was the year where we really internally here at CORE, we put a lot of time and money into structuring the actual training processes within the business, which was probably one of the best investments I've ever made in my business, because it's really streamlined and structured everything. Whereas before, we kind of had a list and we knew the things we needed to go over, but it wasn't super formalized and structured. And now we have scorecards, we have, agendas and objectives and timelines and all of those types of things. But we'll get into some of that in a few minutes. But Sam, whenever you're ready with the presentation. I saw it up there and then it disappeared.
Okay.
All right. So again, today Core Tax and Bookkeeping is our free webinar, Wednesday webinar. Anybody that you know that needs, small, medium-sized business owner that needs some advice on things related to their business. It could be anything from, QuickBooks, payroll, sales tax, franchise tax, and even things like this, like training, because this is all ties back into the finances of the business. Um, and so we're going to talk about mindset and we're going to talk about bookkeeping today as well. Sammy, you can go to the next slide. All right. So today we're going to cover why training is one of the most overlooked business investments. Again, kind of like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it was one of those things even here in my company that, we kind of had a structure for it and we knew what the people needed to do, but we didn't have like a super like structured, formalized process, which we, like I said, we invested in last year, which is one of the best investments I've ever made in my company. How better training protects your time, profit, and team. A lot of people get frustrated with training, but it really is an investment into your business. Because it is your time. If it's done properly, it will result in profit for your business, and it also helps to enhance the team within the organization because everybody's trained properly and knows how things work within your business. We're going to also talk about what effective training looks like, especially as it's related to bookkeepers. We're going to dive into that in a little more detail, but we're going to cover some overarching, what effective training would look like in your business, right? Whether you're someone training, a barista making coffee in your business, or you are training, an executive assistant, an administrator for your company. We're going to hit some major points that you can apply to just about any role within your organization. So Sam, we can move to the next slide. Okay. Why training is an investment and not a cost. So, a lot of people, when they think about training, it's like, oh, it's just another thing I got to pay for. Well, it's really not. It's you're investing in teaching that person how to do things in the way that you do it in your company versus the way that, they may have seen it done in another business, right? Or maybe the way they've been doing things for a lot of years. It really does help with your end product and delivery when you have great training, just so that you can make sure that it's consistent, right? Everybody has, an SLA, a service level agreement with their clients, whether it's, turnaround time to deliver 24 hours or it's turnaround time to, respond back to you with or to do, whatever your SLA is for your service, right? We're going to come out there and fix your broken pipes and we'll have someone out there within, you know, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. Have knowing those things in advance help to make sure that everybody's on the same page and is working at the same levels. It also helps with the cost of employee burnout and turnover. When you bring a new employee into your business and you don't train them properly, you're going to more than likely turn them over. Like you're not going to be able to retain them or keep them because you're kind of setting them up for failure if you're not taking the time to train them. In a perfect world, we would want to be able to hire somebody, put them in a position and say, okay, they should know exactly what to do here because look at their qualifications, look at their credentials, look at their education, look at their work history. But that's really not true, because every business does things differently. When I think about a good example of what something like that might look like is, when we look at, how does Google handle their employees when they come to work there, and how differently does a company like Edge, like Microsoft, handle their employees, right? It's two completely different, two companies that do a very similar thing, right? They both have search engines, they both do advertising, that's what they do, right? That's their business. But if you walk into Google, the way that they train their employees, it's not going to be the same way that Microsoft is going to train their employees. It's going to be different. And so it's important that even the people that are coming in that are highly qualified, very highly credentialed, they need training as well to make sure that they're doing the jobs that you're hiring them for in the way that is specific for your organization. Um, and the cost of leadership time spent to constantly correct is another, if you don't train them first, then you're going to pay for it later. If you don't invest in it at the beginning, right, when everybody's happy and we're just getting started and everything feels great, you're going to pay for it later in corrective actions towards that employee. And again, that's going to probably lead to turnover and burnout if they're not trained properly. Okay, Sam, let's go to the next slide. So we talked about this a little bit, the hidden cost of not training. I think one of the things that I noticed in my business when it came to people that I took the time to actually sit down and train and show them exactly how I wanted them to do things versus people that kind of just got thrown into the fire, right? Is that the people that I took the time to train or were excellent performers. Like they were high achieving performers because they knew exactly what we needed to do, how we needed to do it. They knew when the variables came in, right? The things that are not every day, but that come along maybe once a month or once every few months. They knew how to handle those things. They're more confident in their job. They're more confident in doing things, right? Like if you have, I'll use an example of a receptionist, right? An administrative assistant. You hire an administrative assistant, they come in, day one, you're like, okay, I want you to make these 5 phone calls for me. And then I want you to answer the phone when it rings, right? Well, to us, like to me, that sounds like a pretty simple thing, right? It sounds like, how can that be complicated? You make some outbound calls, answer the phone if it rings. Well, but how do you answer the phone? And, what is the proper greeting? Is it, thank you for calling, Core Tax and Bookkeeping. This is Brandy. How can I help you? Or if my phone rings, are they just calling me, right? And I should say, this is Brandy. What is the proper way to answer the phone? There's a lot of variables there, right? That somebody that's new in your business may not know. And even for making outbound calls, right? If they get somebody on the phone, they're following up on, let's say, proposals. What's the process for that? What are they supposed to do? Right? Anytime your employees have question marks about what am I supposed to do when I'm trying to do this task, it's going to affect their confidence level. And if you have employees that are not confident, they're going to feel stress, they're going to feel worry, they're going to get anxiety, and you're not going to get the best part of them. And so it's really important to make sure that you train them on all those pieces, even the little things that you think are not really that important. Like if you communicate and tell them, right, then they know exactly what they're supposed to do. So there's no confusion or questions later. Let's go to the next slide, Sam. Okay. So what the training investment should look like. I want to talk about this. Sam, do we have a slide about hiring? I don't think we put a slide in about hiring, did we? Like the hiring process?
Oh, let me check.
I don't think we did. But I want
Mm.
to talk about that just a little bit, really, and we'll have a whole nother webinar about like effective hiring in your business. We'll talk more in depth about that and what it looks like for core and what has worked for us and what doesn't work for us. But hiring is one of the most important things that you can do when you're doing when you're doing this in your business, like one of the most important things that you do, right? Because you are bringing in new people, not just to come and support your vision as the owner, founder, manager, whatever your role is, but you're also bringing a new team member in for the rest of your team to work with, right? So it's super important that you are thoughtful about that, and we're not just hiring just anybody, right? Um, one of the things I would say is that initial interview where you have somebody that, you've set it up, you've contacted them, we're going to do a Zoom, you're going to come to my office. That initial interview that you have with them is going to paint the picture of the best that you're going to see out of them. Um, you know, and I know some people are like, well, people get nervous, they get the jitters. Yeah, well, and you can take that into account. But, one of my biggest things when it comes to interviewing people is that very first interview, if you are 1 minute late, then you are not the right person for this company. Simply because, you know, punctuality is important. Deadlines are important. Being on time is important to all of us. We have to value each other's time. Everybody's time is money. Everybody's time is super valuable, especially with the services we provide. And so, I expect someone that's coming in for a first interview to be on time, right? I expect them to respect my time, the time of my team, my staff, my supervisors, my managers, and make sure that they show up timely for that. Um, and that first interview is really that's all it is to see, are they going to show up on time? Are they going to present themselves well, right, for the first initial interview, and what does that initial conversation look like? And that's the first interview, right? It's usually about 15 minutes. The next interview is the technical interview, and that's where we really get into the nitty-gritty of, do they actually know what they're supposed to be doing? Do they understand the job that I want them to do? And are they willing to do the job in the way that I need them to do it, right? Because they may have done the job a lot of different ways for another company, but are they willing to do the job the way I need them to do for my business? And we can get into more of like what that on the job interview looks like, and when we do the webinar on hiring. And then the final interview is always a culture fit, right? Someone can have the best first impression. They can be a rock star technically and know exactly how to do their job. But if culturally they are not a good fit for the company, then I won't hire them. And that's hard sometimes. It's really difficult because, you can have someone that technically is fantastic and is wonderful. I've had CPAs that have worked for me that were just rock stars, but when it came to the culture fit of the company, it just wasn't the right fit, and they ended up leaving because it didn't work, right? The way that we work and the way that they work were not the same, and so that's also a very important piece to look at. Um, and then what the initial training investment should look like, right, is the upfront onboarding, right? Whenever you have a new employee coming in, once you get them past the hiring process and you're bringing them in, getting that onboarding done, making sure that they understand like the technology they're going to be using, the equipment they're going to be using, where they're supposed to be working, what time they're supposed to be being there, right? All those basic things, the very, very basics of I'm going to come and work for your company, like they should have that all should be clearly documented and provided to them as soon as you hire them. And then, of course, as you go through the training process, there's going to be more and more things that they're going to learn, right? Processes, procedures. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Sam, can you go ahead and go to the next slide? Okay. So how much should you spend and when? The training investment kind of does depend on this stage. Um, Again, we were kind of talking about this a little bit a second ago. The early stages, we're going to focus on foundational role. How do I work in this business? How do I clock in? Where do I get my schedule from? If I have a question, who do I ask, right? Those very basic pieces of things. As the employee is growing with your company, you do want to, you know, you do want to help them grow. Nobody wants to be stagnant in their job. Like, I mean, Leslie, when you started for me 3 years ago, right? Like, it was you were pretty new when you came in. I
Right.
don't think you really fully knew what you were getting into when you started here, right? But I
Right.
mean, but you've definitely learned and you've
Hmm.
grown, and you've been challenged and you've overcome the challenges and you've learned even more. And I just feel
Yes.
like, I mean, and I think it's one of those things, right, that can be hard in a job, right? It can be
Hmm.
difficult, but it also is, I think, fulfilling in a way,
Yes.
like that first time that you like completely close a set of books, for tax with all the things and all the, stuff that we have to do on the financials, right, to get everything perfect for tax. But when you finally get it done, like, I mean, you speak to that feeling because I can talk about it, but I think it's more powerful coming from you. So you speak to
Yeah. I
that feeling.
mean, resolving those puzzles that come about amongst various, companies is definitely fulfilling. Also relieving as well, but also understanding that you're able to complete the tasks, and you can ask the questions to management and get the help you need. But I think with the proper training I received, I'm now able to handle a lot of things I didn't think I could handle in the beginning with ease now. And now it's me wanting to learn more, and understand even more and in depth
Mhm.
with the more intricate things now that I've, gone through the basics. So now I look forward to that now, understanding the more harder problems,
Yeah. Well,
I
and
would
I think
say.
well, and I think it's also like confidence building, right?
Oh yeah.
Like I remember the first time that as a team, right, we tackled like almost a 200 head count payroll together, right? Which was
Hmm.
like pay the paper timesheets, all the things, right? And it was such a huge thing. And I remember like all of us in the meeting looking at, we were like, oh man, how are we going to do this, right? But then we did it, like
Hmm.
we pushed through, we followed the processes, we did it. And I mean, I feel like, and after that first one, like we did the next one, right? And we,
Hmm.
same thing, like a little scary, but we pushed through it, and we worked through the processes. But now, like running that payroll, like where it used to be like a terrifying thing for the entire team because it was just such a big payroll, right? Like now
Right.
it's like, oh, we got this. Like we could do this. Like we could do another 100 people. Go ahead, send it, like it becomes
Right.
less scary, right? And you're able to like
Yes.
you're not afraid to like challenge yourself and do more. And
Right.
and that's one of the things that, as the employer, like that's your responsibility is to help your employees feel confident in what they're doing. And that's where the ongoing training comes into play. That's where the never stop learning. I mean, and some people will
Hmm.
say, well, I work in, I have customer service. It's all customer service. You know what? You can deepen your level of customer service. You can deepen your level of understanding of your customers. You can deepen your better, your understanding of good communication with people. You can deepen your understanding of what technologies are available to better serve my clients, right? So there's always additional layers of training and learning that you can do with your team, but you have to do the part that is sometimes difficult as a business owner, which is set aside the time to figure out what are those things. What are those things that I can implement into my business for training for my employees that will benefit me, but will also benefit them, right? Because it's
Right.
got to be double-sided. Like if it's only going to benefit you, then it's, the employee's going to be like, well, okay, I'll do it, but they're not going to be excited about it, right? But if the employee
Hmm.
can see, well, you know what? Getting my QuickBooks Online certification, yeah, it's gonna help Brandy because, it's gonna I'm gonna have my badge and be able to be on the Pro Advisor site and it's gonna be great, right? Like but it's also theirs. Like you keep that when you leave, and I make sure I tell my team that. Like if you ever decide that you want to go work somewhere else, like your QuickBooks Online certification, it goes with you. It doesn't stay with
Hmm.
me. Like it's not going to do me any good, right? It's for you to do. Same with like Gusto payroll certification, right? We have our team working on that as well. And I mean, I think that that's another thing, right? And having those certifications, I feel like are such a it's a badge of accomplishment, right? And we don't get blue ribbons anymore in the grown-up world. We only get that when we're kids, right? Now grown up, we
Hmm.
don't get the little any of that. So like that's, I think those things are important, for your employees is to find ways to benchmark, hey, I accomplished this. What's the next thing that I can accomplish? I'm certified. Now I want to be an expert in this thing, right? And you just keep going, going, going. And I mean,
Hmm.
that's how you grow as a business and you grow your people alongside you. And when everybody is growing, I mean, it's a great thing to see within your organization. So,
Hmm.
Sam, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get into a little more of the technical pieces of training, how people learn. And this is super important on how people learn because not everybody, no two people learn the same, right? And I can speak to this from a lifelong career of training people. I started training people when I was 19 years old, and I'll never forget the training that I received to learn how to train others because training isn't about me, it's about the other person, right? And that was a very foundational element that I learned at a very young age that has actually stayed with me through my entire career. Again, see, training that I did at 18 now still impacting me today. You see that investment that they made in me at 18 years old, and now here I am today, still using some of that same knowledge, that same stuff today. So it goes back to what I said before, but I digress. Okay, so let's keep going. um, but one of the things when you hire somebody, right, when you bring somebody in, a new employee, one of the first things you should be asking them is, how do you learn? What is the best way for you? Do you learn by watching me do it? Or do you learn by doing it yourself? Or do you learn by reading the instructions and trying to follow the instructions step by step? right? So you got to kind of ask, you got to find out from that person, what is the best way, what is the best way for me to teach you? How do you learn? And once you identify that with them, right? Some people may not know. They may say, well, I don't really know how I learn. Like, I don't know what the best way that I learn is. So the the bottom part of this slide right here, where it says layer training works the best, this is how I typically will train everybody, right? I will show it to them one time. I will usually explain it while I'm showing it to them, right? And then I let them do it the second time, right? I don't do it for them after that. I show you one time, you write down the steps, I explain to you the steps. The second time you do it, and that time you should be documenting it. Like, you should be writing your own notes, you should be writing your own stuff down of how you do this. And the third time, I sit back and I just watch. I don't do anything else, but I sit back and I just watch 100% of the other person do the work, so I can make sure that because you're not always going to get to be there when people are doing their work, right? Like, we can't be everywhere at once. I am not a micromanager, and so I don't believe in that. And I believe that people, I hire them to do their jobs and that they will do their jobs. But I can tell you that, like, even if you are a micromanager, you are never going to be able to know exactly what every single one of your employees is doing all the time. So you're better off monitoring them to make sure they know what to do and that they have good notes written down, so that if they run into issues or they forget a step, they have somewhere to reference back to, right? Um, because you're not always going to be there, right? And people are going to have to learn how to work through challenges in their roles individually. And so it's important that, you know, that your employee is documenting the steps, their own steps for the process, right? How they can interpret it, read it, and understand it, right? Because the way that I take my notes, and Leslie can attest to this, and Sam can too, the way that I take my notes, I understand what they all mean. I know exactly what it means. Leslie and Sam, they look at my notes and they're like, yeah, I don't know what any of that means. So it's it's different for everyone, right? It's different, right? The way that we learn it's a little bit different for everybody. And so it's important that you identify how they're going to learn and then make sure you roll it out to them in that way. Um, let's go to the next slide, Sam. So some of the training that we just discussed, some of the like the hiring process, the identifying the type of learner they are, like all those things, um, those are those are things that can be applied to pretty much any role in your business, right? Whether you're training, a again, like an administrator or a receptionist, or you're training, an apprentice to go out with your plumber, right? That's out in the field. Like, and you need the apprentice to learn the basic things for the business before they go out in the field. Like, some of those pieces of information I just said can't apply to every role. Um, but I think the most important piece of this is that great training creates confidence, ownership, and consistency. And that's what we want, right? Like, we all want to be delivering the same, like in our businesses, we want to be delivering the same great products or service every single time, right? And truly, the um the success of training, the success of the training in your company, and the success of your employees in your company very much lies on the shoulders of the business owner or the manager, right? However your company is structured. Like, for me, it's me, right? I'm the owner of the company, and making sure that the proper training is in place for my team is my responsibility, right? And I make sure I take that very seriously, and I try to equip them, right, with everything that they need so that they can be successful. Um, and it's never, nothing's perfect, just like anything else in your business. It evolves, it changes, it grows. You need to add more technology, you need to add more automation. I need them to, rather than me walking them through this, I need them to watch videos. So I record videos for it, right? Like, it's all of those pieces of it. Those are all of the things that you have to do as the owner or as the manager, or whatever, if you're the person responsible for the success of the employees, that's your responsibility to set that up for them. It's not the responsibility of the employee to come to you to tell you what they need to learn. It's the responsibility of you as the owner to make sure that you provide that training for them. And create an open line of communication where they can come to you and ask questions if they have them. Um, I'm a very firm believer that in any business, for any of the employees, like there's not any bad questions. Like all questions are good questions. So that's another kind of little thing that I live by when it comes to my team. Sam, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So now we're going to talk about the bookkeeping role inside of your business. Um, so, a lot of people think that they can hire. So office managers are fantastic. We love working with office managers. I think that it's a great way to make sure that the business owners are getting everything they need, all the support they need from, the revenue operation side of things, the payable operation side of things, treasury management, tax, bookkeeping, accounting, all of those things. It's a great way to keep all the bases covered if you're that size of a business where you can handle the expense of an office manager, right? Um, but it's important that that office manager or that in-house bookkeeper that you have is trained properly. And I'm going to explain to you a few reasons why. Um, so when you open your business as the owner, right, you establish your company, there's not a book that comes with it, right? There's a lot of books that people write that you can buy, right? But there's not a manual that you get that tells you, you know, these are all of your sales tax deadlines and when you need to file your sales tax. This is how you get your numbers for your sales tax so that you can pay it. You know, these are your IRS filing deadlines. These are your Texas Workforce Commission filing deadlines. Like there's not a book that comes with any of that, right? So when you're hiring a bookkeeper, the expectation should be that the bookkeeper understands what those deadlines are in advance, right? What they are. Um, you know, and if they don't understand that, like that's something that you as the owner, you're going to have to train them. You're going to have to teach that to them and tell them these are the dates that you want to follow. And this is where having just like an advisory person, somebody to come in to train and make sure that your bookkeeper is up to speed and knows what they need to do to support the company is super important. Regardless of whether you're working with us or you're working with another firm, whoever you work with to do your taxes should be able to help you with that. Like they should be able to provide you with at least just a list of these are all the important filing deadlines that your bookkeeper needs to make sure that they meet for you. Um, one of the things that I really enjoy about working, I mean, I love our team. Our team is the best. I have the best bookkeepers, but we do have clients who have their own in-house bookkeepers who we love to work with as well. But one of the things I really enjoy about working with some of the external bookkeepers is that, we get to train them too, right? And we get to teach them too. And it's awesome because you get to see them grow, right? And gain confidence in their roles, right? So I think that when you bring in a new bookkeeper into your business, like having just some basic information for them about your business is going to be super important. The other piece of why the bookkeeping training matters so much is that if you don't make sure that they know these things and they don't fully understand how you run your books and they don't fully understand how your CPA expects when it's time to do taxes, you're going to have problems later. And those problems are going to cost you a lot of money. So it's really important that when you hire somebody to manage that part of your business, that they know what they're doing and when they're supposed to be doing it. Because some of those mistakes can be very costly if they're not trained properly, right? So Sam, let's go to the next slide. Okay, must knows for every new bookkeeper. They have to know core accounting principles. So you want to make sure that you're communicating to them how do you run your books? Do you have accounts receivables? Do you have accounts payables? Do you, how many bank accounts do you have? How many credit card accounts do you have? Where are they going to get their bank statements from and their credit card statements? When are they supposed to, what are they supposed to send to the CPA? What does the timing for that look like? Does the CPA do the sales tax for your business, right? What reports does the bookkeeper need to make sure that the CPA has in order to get that done? And so all of those things are very important pieces of what a bookkeeper would need to know in order to be able to provide you with what you need, if they're supporting you in office. Deadlines and communication expectations, what are the deadlines? For our firm, we have a, 15th of the month, month end close deadline for all of our clients, right? So, if you ask any of our bookkeepers, when is the month end close when is the month end close done? They're going to all tell you the same thing. They're going to tell you the 15th of the month because they know that that's their deadline, right? And your internal bookkeepers should know that as well. So it's important that you have that documented and that you communicate that to them so that way they know what those expectations look like. Sam, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So some of the nice to knows for growth and efficiency. So some of the things that can be very helpful when you're looking and hiring someone to come and support you in-house is to make sure they understand technology. You know, I know there's a lot of people out there that are not big fans of all the technology and all the ways that all of that is working, but the fact of the matter is that's where we are, right? That's where things are now. We're not doing the green. I started with a little green ledger book, right? Like if my old boss, Mr. Murray, is watching, hi, Mr. Murray, I'll never forget the green ledger books. But they started with like the little green ledger books, right? That's how I started. But now like nobody uses that anymore, right? Everything is done online. It's done through QuickBooks. It's done through FreshBooks. It's done through NetSuite. It's done through, you know, all the different softwares that are available to us to manage finances as a small to medium-sized business owner. So having a bookkeeper who has a really strong understanding of technology is going to be important, and not like in all technology, not just the accounting software. The accounting software is super important, but they also need to understand how to use like a cloud drive. Like how do I use a cloud drive? Like um how do I manage multiple emails, right? Are they aware of how to do that? Do they know how to what is the method of communication? Are you using Zoom chat? Are you using Teams? Are you using Slack? Like, what are the different things that you want to that person to be able to understand mastery of communication, right? So, like for our firm, there's the accounting software, there's the payroll software, there's the workflow system, and then there's the communication channel, right? We have four major pieces. And when I'm looking to hire somebody, especially a bookkeeper, I want to make sure that they're comfortable with those four types of technology. So that way they can feel comfortable in their jobs. Um, when you're looking for a bookkeeper, if you have somebody who can provide you with financial analysis of your books, that's also going to be super helpful because they are the eyes that are constantly looking at these things, right? So anytime, one of the things that we do within CORE is that every time our bookkeepers update the bank feeds, right? They code all the transactions. They are to pull the financials statements for that time periods they were working on to make sure that everything is in the right place, right? That there's not something that's really weird or that created an abnormal balance somewhere, right there when they finish the coding to make sure that it all looks correctly. A bookkeeper that understands how to read financial reports is going to be able to identify right off the bat if something is wrong there, right? So that's why it's good to have someone that can do that. Recognizing the trends and the red flags. So, for example, if you see that you want a bookkeeper that can not just look at the financials and say, okay, you're profitable or you're not, but someone that can look at them and say, well, you aren't profitable and you haven't been profitable for the last 3 months, by a significant amount, which I think is affecting the cash, which means that we have to make this much more money in this next month in order to not go into the red in the cash, right? So you want a bookkeeper that can do that kind of analysis for you right off the bat so that you can know, right? That way you've got some eyes on the financials of the company so that if things do start to go a little crazy, right, the bookkeeper can let you know right away because they're the eyes on all of it all the time. And then also understanding the bigger business picture, right? I think when you hire an internal bookkeeper, it's important for you to have the conversation with them about what are your goals? What are the things that you're looking for, right? That's one of the questions that whenever we have a new client come into CORE, that's one of the very first things I ask them, is what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Are you wanting to continue to grow and scale your business over the next few years? What are your growth goals for this next year? Are you wanting to sell in the next 5 years? Is that something that you're wanting to do? It's important to know what the bookkeeper, it's important for your bookkeeper and your CPA, right? Your whole financial team. It's important for everybody to know what your goals are so that they can make sure that those financials and that they match those goals, right? Because if your financials are not matching your goals, you're not going to ever get there, right? So that's one of the more important things that the bookkeeper should understand and know is like, what are you trying to achieve this year? Sam, go ahead. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Awesome. And then the we can teach you items. So we hire for potential and train for excellence. Not everybody is going to be perfect when they come in, right? Like, I mean, everybody has areas to learn and grow in. Not everyone is going to know everything right off the bat. Um, but again, it goes back to we talk about the we can teach you items, but it's more like willingness. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to try to understand why we do things differently than maybe what your previous employer did? One of the biggest pitfalls I see a lot of business owners fall into, especially my guys in the trades, is they will hire a bookkeeper or an office manager that worked for a competitor. And they're like, oh, well, they work for the competitor. Now they're going to work for me. It's going to be great. I'm not going to have to teach them anything. I'm just going to put them in the office and they're going to know how to do everything. And no, it doesn't work that way. Like if somebody has experience in your industry, that's fantastic. Like it's great. But that doesn't mean that when you put them in your business that they're going to be able to be great. Like that doesn't, necessarily mean that they're going to be great like day one when they hit the ground, right? Like they're going to need some training. They're going to need some teaching, right? And that's I think, one of the things I've talked with Leslie and Sam about is um it's great when you have somebody that comes to you with a lot of experience, but it can also be a huge downfall when you have somebody who has a lot of experience because a lot of times people that have a lot of experience, they come to the table with their preconceived ideas of how things should be done, right? And that's where the willingness to learn has to come into play, right? And that's one of the biggest things that we look at with people that come to us with a lot of experiences. I love that you have done all of this before, but are you willing to do it in the way that we need it to be done? Right. And that's with every single role in every part of your company, right? You could hire the CFO with the most experience working with, if I'm a potato chip manufacturer with Lay's potato chips and Cheetos and all of that, right? Like I could hire them to come work for me, but if they don't understand my company or how it works or what my goals are, and they're not willing and they want me to be like Cheetos, maybe I don't want to be like Cheetos. Maybe I want to be like Randy, right? So, you gotta have someone who's willing to be flexible and work with you for your specific business and your specific way that you do things. The great thing about people with experience is they've seen what does and doesn't work, right? Which can be really, really valuable. But just because it didn't work for maybe one of their prior employers doesn't necessarily mean it won't work for you, right? So always keep that in mind as well. Trust your instincts. Um, Sam, do we have another slide? Ah, yes. So good training creates clarity, confidence, and consistency. We've talked about this a little bit. Better training leads to fewer mistakes, better retention, stronger performance, and less stress for leadership because you know that everybody is doing the things that they're supposed to be doing in the way that they're supposed to do it. Remember, training isn't an expense, it's a growth strategy. If you want to grow your company, you have to grow your people. Like that's what you got to do. Um, Sam, do we have one more slide? And that wraps up the training part of this webinar today, the training talk. Leslie, do you have anything you want to add? You want to talk about your experiences in training people and maybe like what you've seen that works and doesn't work?
Yes, I would say that training definitely strengthens the employee's understanding. For us, it's understanding, our financial processes and our reporting standards. And I also have noticed with training our bookkeepers that it does make month-end close processes a lot smoother. It also alleviates errors, reducing that, significantly. Um, Definitely recommend training for all organizations, because it does enhance your team. So you can kind of see what's working for your employees, what's not working, where they need more development, in what areas. Excuse the baby in the background. He wants to talk too.
Of
But
course.
I do, it's definitely, beyond just the technical skills. Training also enhances problem solving abilities, just also understanding financial accountability as well. And it also strengthens the trust for our financial reporting as well, helps them build those practical tools, improve the daily performances. I I'm all for the training. It definitely helps all around in all areas, for us to our bookkeepers, to our tax teams. With the training, it just helps all the employees in the organization together, which helps the company flourish,
Yes.
I would
Well, and I
say.
think so, like, I just did a quick search, right, on like what are the
Mhm,
benefits of learning a new skill, right? And there's
mhm,
lots of benefits. Like, and this is just in general, right? Like when we learn how to do something new, it builds confidence, which always feels good, right? I get that a lot when I'm cooking in my kitchen and I try a new recipe, right? And I'm learning it for the first time. Like, and I actually it's like successful, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it kind of looks like the picture a little bit, right? Like that feels great, right? It's
Right.
awesome. Like builds confidence,
Definitely.
improves your brain, and I will say that, like I do remember, I do remember like when you start learning a new skill, like the last time I learned a new skill, um, probably the cooking, because that's really where I struggled the most. But it improves your, like, I don't know, it just makes you think clear. I feel like, it's kind of like when you're reading like a new book, right? That's teaching you something new. Like you just feel like your brain is working, like things are moving, right? The synapses are firing. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like it reduces boredom, right? And gives you purpose, right? And that's especially a
Hmm.
business, right? Because our jobs can sometimes feel a little repetitive and mundane. It's like, well, I'm doing the same thing over and over. Learning something new that you can do in your job, I feel like helps to boost confidence and just gives you a refresher, right? It feels good, gives you more
Right.
energy. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits to continuing to learn just in general, right? And for all the business owners out there watching, like I would encourage you, as the owner of the company, invest in yourself, train yourself. Like that was one of the things that I did for myself last year in this company was I actually took time, and it was probably about, what was it, like 3 or 4 months, Leslie? It was like 4 months, 5 months. It was
Hmm.
it was like 4 or 5 months that I spent training myself intensively on sales and marketing, right? To really, really understand that. Really, really good at the accounting stuff, right? The bookkeeping, accounting, tax. We're great with all of that,
Hmm.
but my weakness has always been not really having a full understanding of sales and marketing, right? How marketing actually works. What does the sales process look like? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that really mean, right? Like, I'd heard it before a million times, but I didn't really know what it meant. But when I took the time to actually learn and train myself, not only did I have that knowledge, right, which has been really beneficial for us, especially going into this year, but it's also giving me more confidence to make decisions on things that maybe I was kind of scared to do before. Um, so I do recommend, like, as the business owner, yes, we need to invest in our team and training, but you need to also invest in yourself. Like, don't be afraid to invest in you, because you are the one driving the ship. You are the one that is going to take you, to the next levels of where you want to go and where you're going to take your team, right? Because your team is your responsibility, right? Like, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned being an owner is that, you know, having the business isn't just about me and my goals. It's about the goals of my employees and the people that work for me. Because if I make bad decisions as an owner, it's going to affect all of them as well. And so it's important that I am training and strengthening myself in my role and in my position so that I can better serve the goals of my team. Because if I'm not serving the goals of my team, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else where their bosses do care about them, right? So I would encourage you as the owner to invest in training for yourself, whatever that looks like, whatever it looks like, whether it's technology, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, accounting. We offer bookkeeping and accounting training now here at CORE. Foundation services. If you're interested, call our office 512-337-1070, or you can book a consultation, which I'm sure Sam's going to throw that link out there for us. So if you want to book a consultation, just click that link and we could talk about training for you as the owner so you can better understand your financials. I had a meeting with one of our clients just before this webinar started, teaching her about how, what does the balance sheet mean? What does equity mean? What does that mean, Brandy? What does equity mean? Like, what is this elusive number that says equity and that is obviously somehow very important to me? Like, what does that mean? So having a conversation with her about that. And I mean, we do that. Like here at CORE, we do offer the services, but we are really focusing on training as well this year. So we want to teach you and show you what we know, so that you can, learn and be empowered in your business, be empowered with your employees, and your employees can be empowered to do their jobs better. So if you're not looking for outsourced services and you're just looking for, some training, we can help you there. So feel free to reach out to our office. I want to thank everybody for being on the webinar today that was able to attend. And if you're watching this on YouTube, after we've already done it live, you can still contact our office for a consultation if you want to talk about training or bookkeeping or tax or whatever other services you might need. We're happy to help however we can. So thank you everyone for being here and watching today. Thank you, Sam and Leslie, for your attendance and participation. And we will see you all next week on Wednesday. Have a blessed day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.